Hi, this is Rhoda Gibson, and for
Oh, I think Rhoda, you
sorry,
muted.
yeah, for some reason I'm not getting any Artag emails at all. I don't know if I'm showing up as Colleen or what, but
Oh, okay. I'll edit you as being I'll edit it.
okay, but could you get me back
Well, well, yes, we will. I don't know what happened there. We'll sort it out.
that I got is from 2021.
Oh,
That's
that's
all I
weird.
can find on my computer. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Rhoda. We'll sort that out. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining tonight's Riders Transportation Access Group meeting. Next slide. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks. My computer froze for a little bit. So tonight, we're just a quick run through of the agenda. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessica Podesva, and I will be facilitating this meeting tonight. I have some bittersweet news in that this will be my last time facilitating these meetings, and I'm really excited to announce that BCIL has hired Kat Torres Rasitic to be your facilitator moving forward. Kat, do you just want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kat, and I, like Jessica said, work at BCIL. I've been there for a few months and just transitioned to the RTAG position. I'm looking forward to getting to know everyone and working with you.
Great. So just a quick run through of our agenda. We're going to do a quick welcome and introductions. Then we're going to go over some housekeeping. Next, we're going to hear a co-chair update from Elizabeth Foster. Then we'll dive into SWA updates. Then we'll hear a presentation on Title VI policy changes. Then we'll have an SWA feedback session. And then we'll hear some ride updates from Mike Kulak, who's the Director of Paratransit Operations. Then we'll have the ride feedback session, and then we'll end with some closing remarks. Next slide. All right, so just some quick Zoom housekeeping. We do have ASL interpreters for today's meeting. Our ASL interpreters are Carrie McSwain and Janice Evans. To view their video, you find the interpreter's video in the gallery. Then in the top right corner of the interpreter's video, click the ellipses. Then you click the pin video option. This will keep the interpreter's video on your screen. Next slide. We also have CART captioning for today's meeting. Our CART captioner is Denise Gracia. To start viewing closed captioning, you click the closed caption with the CC icon. Then you click and drag the closed captioning to move its positioning in the meeting window. Then to adjust the caption size, you click the upward arrow next to Start Video, Stop Video. Then you click Video Settings, then Accessibility. Then you move the slider to adjust the caption size. Next slide. All right, we ask that you use the chat tonight for any technical questions. If you have a technical question about Zoom or any of the accessibility features of tonight's meeting, please use the chat function. Our technical assistant will then attempt to troubleshoot your problem and get back to you. Next slide. This virtual meeting is recorded and will be posted on the RTAG page of the MBTA website. Next slide. All right, next, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Elizabeth Foster, RTAG's co-chair. Elizabeth?
Hi, there we go.
All right, thanks.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Foster, and I am the co-chair of RTAG, and it's lovely to welcome you all back tonight. I don't have a great many updates this time around, but I mostly wanted to second that we are very excited to be welcoming our new RTAG team member. Kat is our new RTAG facilitator, who has been just introduced by Jessica and will now be stepping into Jessica's position. So I just want to take a moment to welcome Kat and a moment to thank Jessica for all of her work for RTAG over the years. In terms of specific RTAG updates, we met with the RIDE to work on improving communications with customers and have had meetings with system-wide accessibility to discuss bus stop protocols and their upcoming marketing campaign on accessibility. That's all of the formal updates that I have for this evening. I just once again want to encourage everyone to welcome Kat and to thank Jessica for her time.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I know those were two really big topics that you all were meeting and combing through, so thank you. While it's short to cover, I know that they were not small topics to be working on, so thanks. All right, next up, we're gonna hear from SWA. Next slide, please. All right, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thanks, Jessica. Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I am Laura Brailsford, and I serve as the Assistant General Manager at the Department of System-Wide Accessibility here at the MBTA. Next slide. And I just wanted to cover a couple key topics with you this evening. The first is I wanted to give everyone an update of the work we are doing relative to our elevator uptime. For those that have been attending these meetings regularly and have been working on issues related to accessibility at the T for a while, you will know that elevator uptime is one of the issues we think about the most here at the T. In many ways, our elevator uptime is a source of great pride at the agency, as typically for the last decade plus, we've been able to boast that system-wide, our elevators are running 99.5% of the time or better, which compared with other transit agencies across the country is a really good uptime rate. However, I wanted to flag for everyone the fact that in 2022, just about a year ago, we began noticing an increase in both the frequency and duration of elevator outages. Specifically, if you look at our uptime for all of 2022, instead of being above 99.4% of the time, 99.4% uptime, we dropped down to 98.7%. And that may sound like a very tiny downturn, but in fact, on a day-to-day basis, that makes a tremendous difference. And we know that riders have been experiencing more instances of unplanned elevator outages. As soon as we started noticing this downturn, we formed an interdepartmental working group to really look at the root causes of what was going on. At our next RTAG meeting, both with the full group here and with the executive board, I have a plan to give a full update on our findings to date. But just to give you a quick peek at what we've been uncovering is it looks like it's a number of complex issues feeding into this uptick in outages. Things like water damage of some of our units, issues related to supply chain designs, and other issues are all compounding to result in more unplanned outages than we typically experience. But I really tonight, I want to just let people know we are taking this extremely seriously and doing everything we can get back to the point where we were over a year ago, where outages were occurring very, very infrequently. I also want to remind folks that there are a number of different ways that you can check and see if there are any outages that might impact your trip before your travel. You can go to our elevator alerts page on our website, which is www.mbta.com/alerts/access. Jen's gonna drop that into the chat. You can also sign up for automated alerts that would get sent right to your cell phone. You can customize that to get alerts about specific elevators, if that's something that would be helpful. You can also call a toll-free number 617-222-2828 to get an automated recording, real-time recording of any elevator or escalator outages. And we also are rolling out a number of digital screens throughout our station lobbies that include real-time information related to elevator outages. So again, I'll be back here at our next meeting to give you a fuller report on what we're uncovering related to the causes of these outages and what we're planning to do to resolve the root causes. But for now, if you run into issues or you have questions, please let us know, and I'll share that information in a second. Next slide. The next topic I wanted to touch on is the fact that we are in the midst of the capital investment planning cycle. So for those that aren't familiar with the CIP is the MBTA's plan for investing in its infrastructure. CIP is comprised of nearly $9 billion worth of funding, projects related to everything from brand new subway vehicles to major track and signal upgrades to station accessibility projects and bus stop upgrades and more. CIP is where we request and receive money for important accessibility projects. It is an annual request and an annual process where projects get nominated and then selected with opportunities for public feedback. And just to give you a sense of some of the projects that are already in the CIP, we have nearly $80 million for the construction of elevators at Downtown Crossing, which will provide a fully accessible connection between the red and orange line. We have $90 million for the full accessibility upgrade of Symphony Station. We have over $100 million set aside for accessibility upgrades at 3 different commuter rail stations, including Natick, Winchester, and Worcester commuter rail stations, and then $11 million for miscellaneous sidewalk and curb ramp repairs at various stations. And that's just a tiny piece of the accessibility projects already in the CIP. In fact, if you total up all of the accessibility projects, there's just over $900 million dedicated to just projects that have a major impact on accessibility. But like I said, the current drafting of the next CIP, the one that will begin in fiscal 24 later this year, is underway. I can say that this year was a little bit different. There was significantly less money to dole out than usual So the requests were really limited to select projects. But I can tell you that there were some very important accessibility projects that made it into the final draft. Things like $20 million for additional elevator and escalator repairs, $15 million for short-term efforts to make certain commuter rail stations more accessible, nearly $16 million to hop off money needed to make Newton Highlands on the Green Line accessible, and a lot more. Next slide. So this is a great opportunity for you to take a look at what is proposed to be in this next draft of the CIP and weigh in, either to nominate a specific project you care a lot about, or simply to say that you are supportive of the investment in accessibility projects. So you can do this in a number of ways. Jen's going to drop the full draft of the CIP in the chat. It is a lengthy document, but one that's chock full of interesting projects. If you have the chance to take a look at that and would like to offer feedback, you can do that by filling out an online form, which will also go on the chat. You can also send an email directly to CIPengagements@mbta.com. You can also send a letter to the CIP investment plan, care of the MBTA General Manager's Office at 10 Park Plaza, Suite 3830 in Boston. Or you can attend one of 3 public meetings. The first is happening tonight in a few minutes, starting at 6:30. That is a virtual meeting. We're also going to be getting together in person at 10 Park Plaza on April 4th at 6:30. And there will be a third and final virtual meeting on April 12th at 6:30. So again, this is a great annual process. And a great annual opportunity to voice your support for funding for key accessibility projects. Next slide. All right, and just in general, if you are interested in learning more about what's going on related to accessibility, at any point you can visit our website, mbta.com/accessibility. Every 6 months, we do a full update on key initiatives that we are working on, and you can get that report by going to mbta.com/SWA-initiatives. And at any time, if you've got a question, a complaint, or an accommodation, we really do want to hear from you. You can call 617-222-3200 or fill in an online comment form by going to mbta.com and clicking on the support tab. Any feedback related to accessibility, it's forwarded directly to my team, and we make sure that that feedback is handled appropriately and that you get a response back. Next slide. You can also sign up for a newsletter that we send out on a monthly basis. But again, you can find this sign up link on our website, or again, if you are QR savvy, you can hold your camera right up to the screen and this QR code will take you right to that link. All right, and before I turn it over to one of my colleagues, I just want to wrap up by saying, next slide, please, that on behalf of my team and really the entire MBTA, we want to wish you all the best, Jessica, and thank you for all the work you've done over the years, from your role at JBLS to BCIL to your specific work as facilitator. You've worn a number of different hats, but you have consistently elevated the issues related to accessibility, and really made this group what it is today. And I know have sort of really built a strong foundation from which we can keep growing. Want to thank you for your friendship and your advocacy. I know we will be seeing you into the future, but really just wanted to wish you the best here tonight. Thank you. And with that, I am going to yield the rest of my time to my colleague, Katie Kalugan, who is here to share with you an important effort underway to issue a new policy, updated policy on our Title VI public engagement plan. Katie?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, folks. My name is Katie Kalugan. I am the Deputy Director of Policy Development at the T. If we can go to the next slide, that'd be great. Awesome. So I'm here today to talk about proposed changes to our Title VI policies, and Title VI is related to our compliance with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And so that does prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin. And that does include limited English proficiency. And specifically, we're proposing changes to 2 of our policies. The first is called our disparate impact and disproportionate burden policy. And what that policy means is, in short, how the MBTA evaluates the equity impacts of proposed service and fare changes. The next bullet point says that so when the MBTA proposes any fare change or what we define as major service changes, we must do an equity analysis. And what we ask is, will minority and or low-income riders experience an increased burden or less of a benefit from the proposed change? And if the answer is yes, we go through efforts to make sure that those changes are fairly distributed. The second is our public engagement plan. The public engagement plan outlines the principles and procedures that the T uses to guide our engagement with the public. And this is mostly related to projects and other decisions related to transportation. We can go to the next slide. So this slide includes 2 images of flow charts describing the process for both service and fare equity analyses. So the graphic on the left is a flow chart for the service equity analysis, and we're asking, how does this work? These are both really complicated processes, and we're trying to simplify them in ways that folks could understand. So with the service equity analysis, the process begins with a proposed change in service. So, maybe we're proposing to increase service by 10% or something. So the next question we ask is this a major service change? And the answer is yes, if the proposed change lasts longer than 12 months and significantly changes either one of 3 factors. The first is the amount of service per week per mode. The second is the amount of service per week by route. And the third is the geographic extent of service, i.e. coverage. And if we look at those metrics and determine that, yes, this is a major service change, then we move on to asking, or actually conducting, equity analyses. So this is where we get into the numbers about how do these changes have impact our minority and low-income riders. And after we conducted this analysis, we then ask, is this change unfair? And by unfair, we're asking, does this place an unfair impact on these minority riders and or an unfair burden on low-income riders? And then if the answer is yes, we look into how we can seek to mitigate those impacts or look into alternatives before we even can approve or implement those changes. The flowchart on the right is for a fare equity analysis, asking the same thing, how does it work? The process is quite similar. So we'll start with any proposed fare change. Let's say we're trying to reduce commuter rail fares. We'll ask, does this change require an equity analysis? Yes, if that proposed fare change will last longer than 6 months. And if the answer is yes, again, we enter into the equity analysis phase where we assess the impacts on minority and low-income riders. And then we ask again, is this change unfair? And so we have certain thresholds for these determinations. If the answer is yes, then we look into mitigation measures, including any less discriminatory alternatives, and then make any changes as needed. We can go to the next slide. So the two changes, well, we're proposing, a bunch of changes to each of these policies, but I'm just highlighting two of the changes for our disparate impact, disproportionate burden policy. The first is renaming it to something that might make more sense to the public, and that is service and fair change equity policy, which is exactly what the policy relates to. So we're hoping that this change is just clear and enhances understanding for the public. It's also helpful for ourselves. The second is redefining what we mean by a major service change. We're trying to account for network-wide effects, and what we mean by this is that specifically the current policy has a route length metric, which is helpful, but that's sort of on the individual route basis. We're trying to get at system-wide changes. And so we're proposing to replace the route length metric with a simple base coverage metric to see how changes in the aggregate or changes system-wide have an impact. And the other change to major service change is that we're trying to clarify which changes might be exempt from a service equity analysis and which ones do require the service equity analysis. Next slide. So moving on, so the second Title VI policy that we're seeking to change is our public engagement plan. So the public engagement plan was originally drafted in May of 2020, and this plan was meant to guide authority-wide public engagement, and it did include a lengthy public engagement period, sort of what we're doing now. The plan is really meant to provide guidance on how do we conduct outreach, how do we notify riders of service changes, of any other changes, and this just generally, how do we engage with external stakeholders? And the plan does establish sort of baseline requirements of how we're going to conduct public engagement, but that doesn't mean that staff or our consultants can go above and beyond those standards. So some of the key changes, they're relatively minor. The first is expanding our section on virtual public engagement. So after the pandemic hit, we went to a strict virtual world, and we want to make sure that we're keeping that a virtual form of engagement an option for public meetings like we're doing today, so that more folks are included in the process. And we're just making it clear in our public engagement plan that that's something we're going to continue to utilize in addition to in-person opportunities. The second is expanding our section on accessibility and public engagement. And what that means is, in practice, is that we know that SWA is working on an accessible public meetings document, and we want to make sure that that's included in our public engagement plan so that riders can reference. The third is adding clearer language for soliciting and considering public comments for major service changes and fare changes as well. And this is a specific request from the FTA. We just weren't as clear about how the public can provide this feedback. So we added some language about how folks can get involved. And another change is related to the third bullet, but we're adding a direct link to our service and fair change equity policy, which we're talking about today, just so that riders can equally or easily access that information when they're looking at it, the public engagement plan. Next slide. So I'll pause for any questions, and I will say that I just presented a very condensed version of really complicated and intricate policies. So if you all can, I suggest you go to our website at mbta.com/draft policies. The webpage includes all the proposed changes, each draft document in 5 different languages, and also includes all the ways that you can provide your feedback. So maybe, later, maybe this weekend, you have some free time, check them out. Let us know what you think. And the deadline for feedback is a couple of weeks from now, so Friday, April 14th. And we'll take our writers' feedback, we'll create a summary of feedback, and then we'll consider the feedback and make any changes to these draft policies with the public in mind. And then at the end of April, we'll be presenting to our board of directors for approval and adoption. I'm happy to take any initial questions now if folks have any.
Okay, can we go to the Q&A slide? Great, thank you. So now we can open it up for some questions and comments. So to indicate that you have a question, please use Zoom's raise hand feature located at the bottom of the screen. When you'd like to raise your hand, it alerts me that you'd like to speak, and then we will prompt you to unmute and ask your questions in the order of which you raise your hand. So once again, if you're joining us on the computer, you can click the reactions button and then raise hand. You can also utilize Alt-Y as a keyboard shortage. And if you're joining us on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. And we've also put some of these in the chat for everyone. So it looks like we have an initial question. Andrew?
Hi, so yes, one of my questions was that earlier, were you guys talking about the new orange and red line cars? Was that part of this meeting at all? It's just so I do have a question about that. When we were talking about accessibility earlier.
I think that might be for Laura.
Okay, we have Laura.
There we go. Andrew, do you mind repeating that question?
Yes, I have a question about the new orange and red line cars that are put in place. Regarding accessibility, I'm just curious as to if the MBTA has considered making these trains walk through, and if so, why have they not made these walk through? Like currently, you can't walk from one car to another, which I feel like, I definitely have some questions about that.
Yeah, that is a great question, and one that I am not equipped to give a full answer to. However, I do know that one of the reason our cars are our train sets are segmented into cars is simply so that they can be much more flexible as they are going around curves and bends. And that by keeping the cars segmented, this gives the train sets a lot more flexibility. It also keeping those trains separated provides an additional safety feature for riders. So I think the big thing is sort of the allowing the consist to navigate through what are oftentimes twisty turns in our tracks. But this is something I'm happy to follow up with some additional details from our vehicle engineering team at a future meeting.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure.
Right. Any other questions for Laura or Katie? I thought I saw another hand, but I think they put it down. So Tom.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hey, Laura, hey, Jessica. I have a question. It's more of a general question when it comes to capital and investment projects. I brought this up to Sandy Johnson at a CIP meeting several months ago, and I brought up the issue as far as equipment that the T purchases and why we keep running into like quality control problems, like that if you purchase something that works properly from the beginning, in the long run it's a lot less expensive than it would be to get something cheaper that isn't as good, but then you end up investing more in correcting the issues. So I was wondering what kind of say we have over like the quality control issues as far as making sure we purchase from companies that will provide us good products, like us being the collective customer. Just curious about that.
Yeah, no, and I know that's something that many departments are giving a lot of thought about as they are making major procurements, whether it's related to building a station or buying a vehicle, um, or purchasing a new software system. So there are a lot of complex procurement regulations that project teams need to navigate, and rules about how and when projects are awarded. But what is key, but what is most key is the contract language and making sure that there are appropriate incentives and penalties within the contract, and that there is a high degree of oversight of the project as it is being delivered. So certainly there are projects that encounter lots of bumps along the way, and others that go more smoothly. But it's sort of building in that good QA process is what helps make sure that we're offering safe and accessible services. But definitely an issue, Tom, that many people at all levels are thinking about and trying to figure out ways to ensure going forward.
Because I just wanted to say that SWA really got it right as far as the accessibility features of like the new orange and red line cars. That's not the part that I'm complaining about. The part I'm complaining about is the company itself. We're just not getting the respect, and we know the factories in Springfield, and and I know, and a lot of other people know that we're not getting a lot of respect from the outside company as far as to make that product to make it work for us. Because from an SWA point of view, you were right on target. But as far as like noise dB levels, as far as the trains themselves, that they're no better than the Blue Line cars from 2004, 2005. So it's not really, from that other perspective. But as far as the locators, we just need to work on the angling issues and knowing how to go for the doors for visually impaired riders. But like I said, again, I think SWA really got it right as far as the accessibility side of it. I'm just letting everybody know that it's not. I'm not saying any way it's SWA's fault. I'm just saying from the other, from the vendor, from the company side of, what's the company called? It CRC. Changchung Railway, is it called?
CRC is the manufacturer of the new red and orange line
Yeah,
card.
that's what I'm getting at. So I don't want to give any impression I'm stepping on SWA's feet or anything on it. It's just, I think we got it again. I think on that side we got it right. It's the vendor, that the company, the MBT as a whole, that we should have been more scrupulous, more aware of what was going on as far as how to get the product produced and everything.
Yeah, so Tom, as you and many others are aware, the MBTA works with hundreds, if not thousands, of vendors. And many, if not most of them, deliver excellent products, and other projects are far more complicated, both in terms of the product and the relationships. We're really lucky to work with other departments like vehicle engineering and capital delivery, who really are on the front lines of those relationships, and they have to have really tough jobs, but take the accessibility considerations extremely seriously. So yes, there are some very challenging realities out there related to procurements, but we have a lot of reasons to be grateful that, you know, there's a lot of key folks really working to make sure that we're getting accessibility right with these procurements.
Because one thing I want to say about as far as the buses go, New Flyer International, that they were the ones, along with the Dutch entity, that did invent the first low floor bus. So they're the innovators
Yeah.
in low floor technology. So I wanted to say that the buses have been really great because I said I've been really happy with the 1, 2, and 3,000 buses in general. And they're nice and big and quiet, and they seem to be pretty reliable.
great.
So kudos to that. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Andrew?
Okay, so I also have a question about the Title VI, was it? What is the goal for that? I didn't quite understand what the goal for Title VI was. Like, is the MBTA trying to like make it easier for non-English speakers, or like what is it for, like, for? Yeah, that's I guess my question.
Totally. Thanks, Andrew. So Title VI is part of a federal requirement, and it does prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin. And the policies we're talking about today are specifically related to our service and fare changes, and then how do we engage the public. But I think the most relevant to your question would be our disparate impact and disproportionate burden policy related to Title VI, on how do we explicitly consider the impacts of service changes and fare changes on minority or low income communities. There's just a specific emphasis on those protected groups. But generally our public engagement plan is meant to make our public outreach, our engagement, as accessible and inclusive as possible, so that we can consider the most riders as possible in our decision-making processes, if that makes sense.
So that means like putting like new information in various languages.
That's absolutely part of it. So we do have a separate language access plan. So I can give an example, like by default, we should be translating all of our documents into 6 different languages. So Chinese, Portuguese, Spanish, English, Haitian Creole. I don't know if I said this, Portuguese, Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese. So yeah, the language is a huge part of what we try to do.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew, for your question, and thank you, Katie, for that response. Jennifer?
Hi, Katie. Hello, all. Katie, I have a question. Where are you and how are you obtaining the statistics for the low income and minority guidelines and baselines? Where and how are you obtaining these statistics? Are you in the North Shore, South Shore, general Boston area? How?
That's a great question, Jennifer. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. So it depends on what we're talking about. So if we took a service change, if that's our example, we would want to use data that is specific to that area. So let's say we're proposing a service change to the Orange Line. We'd want to consider data, and that can be from US Census data, it can be from ridership data directly from the T, on who actually uses the Orange Line. And then with that data, trying to figure out, okay, with this service change, how does this impact these certain communities? And the same would be the case for any fare change or any service change.
Okay. Thank you. I'm looking at our time. I'm sorry, Jennifer, did you have a follow-up?
Nope. Thank you.
All right, great. I'm looking at time and I think we should probably move over to the ride presentation unless we have any additional questions for Laura or Katie.
Jessica, just with this minute remaining, I had neglected in my remarks to share some good news out of our department, and that we just hired a new customer engagement coordinator, Lisa Weber, who has been working in the accessibility space for a number of years. I first met Lisa when she was vice chair of ACT, which in many ways was the predecessor of RTAG. We are thrilled to have her joining our team. She'll be working closely alongside Jennifer Ross, who many of you know and is now our Deputy Director of Customer Engagement. So just want to welcome Lisa. And again, for anybody who files a complaint or feedback with us, those are going to get copied directly to Lisa and Jen to make sure they're handled appropriately. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Laura. Yes, congratulations, Lisa, on your new role. Thrilled to hear that you'll be over at SWA. Okay, so I think we should go ahead and turn it over to the ride. Can we go to the next slide? Great. So next we're going to hear from Mike Kulak, the Director of Paratransit Operations from the ride.
Thanks, Jessica. Good evening, everybody. Mike Kulak, Director of Paratransit Operations now. Most of you probably know me. I've been around for many, many years. I just want to take a moment to thank the ride staff for joining me with this meeting as well, in the event I can't answer any questions you may have. Michelle is on a well-deserved vacation, so just trying to fill her shoes for the evening meeting. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide here, ride service update. Our ridership has been pretty much flat since July of 22. January ridership was up 27% compared to February of 2022, but down 5% compared
I'm
to
sorry,
January.
Mike. I'm going to have
Yep.
to jump in. Can you talk a
Sure.
little slower, please? We do have sign language interpreters.
Absolutely, sure. I'll start over.
You're going a little too fast.
I told you at the beginning I'd go fast for you, Jessica.
Yeah, don't
Yep.
do that.
So total ridership has been mostly flat since July of 2022. January ridership was up 27% compared to February of 2022, but down 5% compared to January. February ridership was 58% of pre-COVID results. So we still have quite a bit to go to get back to our normal levels. Next slide, please. OTP again was pretty flat, 90%, with the rate of trips greater than 120 minutes increased slightly compared to January. So sitting at the 90% where we've been for quite some time. Next slide, please. Ride service update, call center performance. Call center performance dropped slightly in February. In February, the ASA for reservations was 5.4 minutes and reservations 5.4 minutes and 3.4 minutes for dispatch. Additionally, the February data does not include the last week of data due to a software transition with the telephone system. So we do apologize there. However, we were doing about the same amount of total calls, which is about 95,000 calls per month. Good news is the call center has 2 new individuals in training, so they should be hitting the floor within the next couple of weeks to assist with the lengthy call times. Next slide, please. The ride service update and complaints. The rate of complaints has stabilized since July. In February, there were 192 valid complaints, 35 accommodations, 293 inquiries. Next slide, please. Transportation Management Software RFP. We have a diverse technical evaluation committee reviewing our proposals. Presentations are underway. Then we'll be going to the testing phase and the contract award. Implementation will be adjusted based on contract award and coordinated with the winning bidder. That's about all I can say in that slide at the moment, but we are moving forward with the software RFP. Next slide, please. The ride staffing update. We are continuing to look at our staffing needs, the positions we are focusing on. My prior position, Deputy Director of Operations, Technical Project Manager, Senior Customer Liaison, as indicated, just posted. All positions can be found on the MBTA's website. Again, the only one that's posted right now is the Senior Customer Liaison. Hopefully we'll have the other ones posted in a relatively short manner. Next slide, please. As we've indicated in many, many meetings, we're struggling with our workforce. All ride contractors are hiring. Ride contractors are hiring for a number of positions, including drivers and operations staff, call center, mobility center positions. Visit the MBTA.com ride hiring for direct link to contractor websites. Additionally, you can call the ride employment hotline to be directed to contractors hiring lines at 857-206-6545. Next slide, please. And here's some key contact information. I think we all have this by now, so I'm not going to read this line by line. Next slide, please. And Jessica, back to you if I could take some questions to assist anybody.
Yep. And just so everyone knows that contact information will be posted to the MBTA's website and the slides are accessible. So all that contact information, if you're interested in taking a look at that or need that will be posted on the T's website after the meeting.
Thank you, Jessica. And again, thank you for your assistance through the years. It seems like yesterday in one hand that we met many, many, many years ago with Judge King and so forth. In one way, it looks like a lifetime. So
Over
best
10,
of luck to you.
about 10 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, I've been around for 24 years and I don't know where that time went either. So best of luck to you. I'm sure we'll stay in touch though.
Thank you. Yes. So we'll turn it over to questions. I did also just want to flag that on that software procurement from the RTAG standpoint, we do have an RTAG member that is participating in that procurement to help advocate and ensure that a lot of the issues that I know this community encountered with the last software transition, hopefully we'll be trying to mitigate that again this time. So there is an RTAG member participating on that procurement, just so folks know.
Thank you for adding that, Jessica.
I thought that was an important piece.
Sure.
So next we're going to open up to questions and feedback for the ride. And also I saw a couple hands go up. So if you had other questions for Laura or SWA as well that we didn't get to, we can go ahead and open that up here as well. So to indicate that you have a question, please use the raise hand feature located at the bottom of the screen. And when you raise the hand, it alerts the moderator that you'd like to speak. And then we'll prompt folks to unmute and ask your questions in the order of which you raise your hands. So if you'd like to speak, click the reactions button and then raise hand, Alt-Y on your keyboard, or *9 on the phone, or *6 to unmute. Tom?
Hi, I wanted to say hi to Mike. I think the last time I saw you, Mike, I think it was on the commuter rail.
Yes, it was. Whitman Station, Tom. That was many years ago.
It was, yeah. I think I was still doing the monitoring on the commuter rail. Yeah, I want to mention about that, and I also wanted to say hi to Lisa. To tell her I wanted to say welcome aboard, and I do remember Lisa very well from the ACT meetings, and a great job that she did for ACT, and just wanted to welcome her aboard, and for the great work that you're doing, Mike, and in general. I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Good to see you as well.
You too.
Okay. Any other questions for the ride presentation? Sandy Novak. Oh, Sandy, you're on mute.
Thank you. This is a seatbelt issue, and I did send an email to the ride the day it happened, but I want to bring it up here because I am concerned about the issue, and I haven't heard back on my emailed complaint. On March 17th, I got picked up to come back home from a medical appointment, and I had a very nice driver, but she had to run into the ladies' room, so I tried to put on my own seatbelt, and I couldn't find the connecting piece. I found the part that went over across my chest, but I couldn't find the big part on the seat. So I got up and I moved to this seat in front of me on the ride. This was a ride van, and I couldn't find it there either. So I stood up and I looked around, and lo and behold, I found it attached to the floor. Both seatbelts were attached to the floor. So then I was able to put it on once I realized where the other part was, and I thought the issue was over with. But what happened then is we went to pick up another customer and then bring that other customer to her destination before we could bring me home. And when she released her seat, and the driver put on her seatbelt for her, so reached down to the floor and pulled it up for her. And when we got to the destination, the customer released the seatbelt on her own, and the connecting piece that connected to the floor of the van then flung itself into me because my foot was down there. And
Sure, Sandy, I'm aware of the complaint you filed. It's under review. You should be getting a response very shortly.
okay,
Basically, it's the speed of the retractors, how quick they retract back into the wall cavity and so forth.
my concern is that it's a safety issue, and I don't understand why it's not connected to the seat like all the other seat belts are.
It's actually connected to the wall. It's not connected to the floor. The only belt that's connected to the seat is the inboard seat on the aisle side. Everything else is to the wall.
That's what I'm talking about, the one in the aisle.
Yeah,
It's in the floor.
correct. For reasons that the seats fold up and so forth. They can't be secured to the floor.
No, not
Except for the,
not the one that holds two people, the one that holds a single person.
I understand. Yeah, so the retractor comes from the wall, and then the female part is on the seat. Yes.
No, it's not on the seat, it's on the floor. That's
It's-
what I'm
I-
talking about. The
Sure, I
one
don't-
the part that's by the window comes over me and that part's fine. But the
Correct.
other part connects to the floor, whereas on other vans, it connects to the seat.
Yeah, the video that I reviewed doesn't show that, and the inspections that we have doesn't show that, but we can follow up after the investigation is complete to make sure that everybody is on the same page and you're satisfied with the response.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that other people don't have something falling into them from how it's connected to the floor.
Well, and thank you for bringing it to our attention as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Elizabeth?
Yes, thank you. Yes, Elizabeth Dean Clower. Mike, I just had a quick question. I know this isn't going on now, but can you give this audience an estimate about when the next procurement will be up for consideration for the ride vans?
Truthfully speaking, I don't have an exact date. However, looking at the trip volume decrease and the decrease in miles that we've been putting on the vehicles, it was supposed to be several years anyway. That's probably going to be pushed out even further. We're just not utilizing the fleet as we had planned.
Okay.
Which-
that's-
Which in a way is good. We don't have to buy the fleet. We're not utilizing it. Unfortunately, we'll probably be running these vehicles more than 7 years because we're not putting miles on them as we anticipated.
Yeah, the only trade-off is, as you have heard in meetings, that even if there's a decrease in trips, I don't know what the statistics are for situations where two wheelchairs are still needing to travel together for portions of a shared trip, but we continue to have issues with that, with safety and having adequate space. And I think even if there is a decrease in overall utilization, that particular issue still occurs, or at least could occur. And that's why we're hoping the U-Serve vehicles, when they're used for people in wheelchairs, will help avoid that particular scenario, since those fixed seats don't.
Yeah, we have not changed our policy regarding two wheelchair boardings at the same time. And it's been several months since I've heard anything, since we've done a refresher course with all drivers trying to explain how to secure the chairs properly. So if you're aware of specifics that we're not aware of recently, please let us know so we can investigate with that consumer.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yes, mine, it didn't, oh, actually, no, it was a situation where I also, the van was running late. I was going to be late for they were going to have to, it was going to involve 2 wheelchairs, but I was going to make me late and I was able to use Ride Flex. So it would have occurred, but thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks. And I'd love to ask, Peter, I see your hand too, but I'd love to ask Mike, what refresher, can you talk a little bit about that refresher and what that consisted of?
Sure. It was just a basic refresher course for all drivers and a posting at their dispatch center, the dispatch location, the desk, identifying how to secure 2 wheelchairs. And in the event that a driver does have concerns or is unable to secure 2 wheelchairs, safety is called and dispatched to the driver's location in order to assist that individual with securement.
It's great to hear that that happened because I know that that was raised quite a bit by folks at this meeting. So thrilled to hear that you went forward
Absolutely.
and did that retraining.
Absolutely.
Peter?
Hi, I just want to reiterate what the previous speaker said. Because I have a reclining wheelchair. There is no way, it doesn't matter. You can train the drivers every day of the week. You're not going to get 2 wheelchairs in those vans with me. It's just not going to work because of my situation. So when is the ride? I know you said you put off getting new vans, but the option, the way I look at it as someone, and I'm not the only one who uses a long wheelchair that reclines, is that you either have to get new vans that where the front seats can go down, or you have to remove front seats from the existing vans so that when 2 wheelchairs have to go on, one can go more to the front behind the driver, like we have used to do many, many years ago. And for some reason, the T did not factor that in when they got these new vans. The other thing is that needs to be addressed is if there is a safety concern with the lift and wheelchairs that recline, it isn't the passenger's fault that the T changed the style of lifts on the van. So it would be up to the T to also make sure the lift is longer, the same size as they were in the old van, so that you can accommodate all wheelchairs safely.
So let me start, Peter. As you know, your situation is a bit different than most of our customers, and you know we've been trying to coordinate, but I don't want to get into the details on this conversation with this meeting. However, the lifts are the exact same, 34 inches by 54 inches, same manufacturer, same platform width and so forth. Happy to follow up with you further offline, sir.
Actually, they're not, if I may add, they're not the same. The lifts on the vans were, became smaller many years ago. Before that, when we had the Dodge vans, and Dodge don't make the vans anymore, the Braun lift was longer. It was a lot, it was about, I don't know how many inches longer, but it was longer. And there was no concern about the manufacturer's safety. Now, 30 years into the ride, having these short vans, all of a sudden, I'm told, and other consumers are told that, hey, there's a safety concern. The manufacturer says you can't be over 54 inches. You got to make sure you're not hanging out over the lift. Yeah, and I'm not just talking about me. I know there are other passengers, as I said. So I'm not just talking about me. What I want to know, and I'd like an answer, is when does the T intend to address these issues that are being brought up time after time at these meetings?
Sure. Okay. So let me start with the lift capacity. Right now, our lifts are 34 by 54. which is the largest platform that either Braun or Rycon offers, or any other wheelchair lift manufacturer offers. The capacity is 800 pounds. These are the requirements and the restrictions that the manufacturer puts on us. It's not the MBTA. We've actually ordered the largest lift possible to transport as many customers that we possibly can in a safe manner, Peter.
Can I jump in and ask some maybe questions that might help clarify or help answer some of these?
Sure.
Because I think some of the root of Peter's question is really important and has been and might be getting missed. So in these meetings, we've heard a number of times from folks who, when 2 wheelchairs couldn't fit, would then end up stranded or waiting for hours, waiting for a new vehicle. And I know you mentioned you redid that training. Can you talk a little bit about what policies or changes the T put in place to avoid having that happen, and also to address that issue specifically and the concerns on safety, and what happens if you end up in a situation where you have 2 chairs that don't fit, and how, a new vehicle is dispatched and timeliness of all of that. And I think that, Peter, is that what you're trying to get at?
So let me get this.
That was one of the issues. There's 2 issues. That one and the issues about the lift. Now, if Mike is saying that now Braun only makes that size lift, then you can't say to people who have a wheelchair like mine that still need the ride, hey, sorry, we've got these manufacturer restrictions. The ADA doesn't let you do that. The ADA absolutely doesn't permit you to deny me a ride because, the lift, according to manufacturer, it's unsafe. But I've been riding on those same lifts for over 30 years, and I've been using the ride over 40 years.
Right.
So I'd just like to know when I'm actually going to get a straight answer.
Well, sure, Jessica, I'll take a quick shot at this, and I think we should move on. Again, the lift platform size is 34 by 54. Requirements have been put on lift manufacturers to have different safety features put in place throughout the past many, many years. The customer's mobility device must fit within the yellow outlined area. No portion of the customer's wheelchair should extend beyond the lift platform, or either on the rear, closer to the vehicle, or to the curbside. If that happens, that customer should not be picked up by the lift, because now you're changing the center of gravity and what the lift was truly designed for. This is the manufacturer's regulations, instructions, policies, and so forth. So Peter, and what's happening, let me back this up a little bit further. Jessica, what's happening is how we resolved most of the issues here is to make sure customers are not in a reclined position and have their leg braces pulled back as full as possible to be within that 54-inch envelope, if you will. The width, the 34, very, very rarely do we have a problem with that. The 54, when you think about 54 inches extending off the side of the vehicle, mobility devices have changed drastically over the past 20 years. The weight of them, the weight of the batteries, how far they can go. When you put 800 pounds and you're hanging that off the vehicle at 5 feet out, you're putting a substantial amount of stress on that metal and on that vehicle. So that's why the manufacturers have designed parameters that you have to fit within. And at this point, I truly think we should move on to other questions, Jessica.
Okay. Any other questions for the ride? Tom?
Mike, I have a question. Is Shepherd's Brothers still in business? The ones that made in the previous procurement in upstate
Yes,
New
sir.
York? Oh, they are still in
Yep.
business.
Shepherd Brothers Coach and Equipment is still partnering, making paratransit vehicles, correct?
Oh, okay. Because I do remember, I think not in the latest procurement, but in the previous procurement, that as far as the wheelchair fitting areas, that maybe they got it right on that one, but then the latest procurement is where it was a little bit changed a little bit. But maybe I'm wrong, but am I understanding that right?
Well, no, there's ample floor space. There's 110 inches of floor space. There's ample space to
Right.
secure 2 chairs if you're within the 54-inch platform.
Hmm.
That's where we, I guess, agree to disagree. Again, That's about all I can say on the lifts until we have a further update there.
Oh, no, I'm not referring to the lift. I mean, when you're on board, that seat behind the driver, you know, that seat that some people have been complaining about, that you can't fit more than one wheelchair at a time or something. There was an issue with the seating area on board or something. I was just wondering, because it seems like that maybe in the previous procurement with Shepherds that they got it right on, but then in the latest procurement, somehow there was a slight change on that, and that's why they were having issues with that or something. That's
Sure. That seat is a stationary seat.
Yeah.
It used to be a folding seat many years ago, several procurements ago. And the reason that seat had to change is because we are close to the gross vehicle weight capacity. And due to new requirements under the federal motor carrier, so forth and so forth, whatever the alphabet soup we want to call it is, they changed how seatbelts have to be secured. And with that seatbelt being secured on a foldaway seat, that seat then became much more robust. So when it's a stationary seat, it's now secured to the floor. It doesn't have to be as robust, which then in turn eliminates some of the weight of the vehicle overall. Does that make sense, Tom?
So it's going back again, once again, back to a manufacturing kind of the specifications and the.
It's going back to changing that seat layout due to a new seatbelt requirement, 3-point harness stuff.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay.
Again, we're mandated by policies and requirements, and things do change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse.
Right, and I think in general that's the importance of everybody being on the same page, I suppose, when these purchases are made, I suppose. But that's 2020 hindsight, I guess. But you know.
Yeah. However, the same floor space is available today for securements than it was 8 years ago. That has not changed. It's just changed and moved further backwards.
So in 8 years, okay. Okay, thanks. Okay.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Elizabeth?
Yes, I just wanted to let Peter and others at the meeting know. This is Elizabeth Jean Clower. I'm one of the co-chairs of the RIDE subcommittee for RTAG. We do hear your concerns, and although I agree with Mike that in this forum for this meeting, it's not something where we can take the discussion further. But I do want to give you our assurance that we hear what you're saying, and that it is not acceptable to have a portion of our ridership excluded from offering paratransit service through the MBTA. So we need to discuss with Michelle and her staff how to resolve this issue so riders aren't excluded, particularly that was new information today that the new procurement will even be further out, but we need a solution for a subset of our riders that's workable much sooner than that. And as Mike had said, that from I think what we all can agree on is the size and configuration options on wheelchairs have increased. The availability for bariatric riders to have chairs that meet their specifications, as well as riders who need specialized features, all need to be taken into account. That it's not an adequate analogy, but just as other vehicles have changed, SUVs and other vehicles have changed in size and in other aspects than originally, say, striped parking lines were made for, in a much more important way for having people be able to get around the way they need to and use the ride. We do need to pursue this further, but it's something that will take time and a combination of not only just general meetings, but internal meetings. So thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And by no means is it our intent to prevent customers from being transported on the ride. But it is my responsibility to make sure that everybody is transported in a safe manner, and I take that very seriously.
Thanks. Peter, did you have a final question?
Yeah, first of all, Jessica, I wanted to thank you for hosting these meetings and being a part of RTAG. I've known you for years, and I think you do a great job, and you are going to be missed. The other thing is, it sounds like to me that this policy, and I hope I'm wrong, but it sounds like people in wheelchairs such as me who have to recline are going to now be left with no way to get around their community, because all of a sudden we have this new policy. You can blame it on the manufacturer, you can say whatever you want, but it just isn't right if it turns out that passengers such as myself that are unable to sit up, that do have to go on the lift reclined, may be left out. And I don't think that's right. And I will also look into this more with the ADA, because it needs to be corrected. And at some point, we need to all have a virtual meeting about this issue. I agree that this isn't the forum to have a long discussion, but we do need to have one. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for flagging that and bringing that to this attention. And any other questions for the ride? Or any follow-up from Laura's? Because I did see a few hands right as we were transitioning go up, and I am sorry that I didn't catch that. Tom?
Hi, this is more of a common information for Laura and Jennifer, or more for Jennifer. I got the answer to the what we were talking about earlier, Jennifer, on that transfer route that comes up too late. It's Lake Street and Pleasant Street on the 76 route going to Aloy Station. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. That I found out that that's where the transit master announces the stop too late and doesn't give the driver a chance to slow down. So it's Lake Street at Pleasant Street on the inbound on the 76 coming from the MIT laboratories back to Aloy Station. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom, for the update. I appreciate that, and I'll pass that along to our service planning team.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Tom. You've always been our bus guru, and I always know if I ever get lost on the bus route, I call you.
Thanks. Yeah, and I just wanted to say what Peter said earlier, said that you'll be missed when you leave us. So you're doing a great
Thanks,
job.
Tom. I keep saying y'all are like the mafia. You can't let me go that easy. So I know we'll stay in touch.
Talk about a commitment.
Jennifer?
Hi, everyone. Mike, excuse me. Do we have any statistics on the user vehicles that you can bring to light in this meeting?
You're talking ridership statistics? What are you looking for?
Yes, ridership.
Well,
Because
let's see.
I
if
haven't heard of
Mr.
anyone being transferred over.
Sure. Let's see if we can tap Mr. David Hatch. David, you're not getting off too easy tonight.
Yes.
No, sir. Hi, Jennifer. Yeah, right now we're shifting roughly 70 to 75 trips a day. And I want to say in the 6 to 8 range, 6 to 8 trips are non-ambulatory trips. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, yes.
Great.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we think we have time for one or two more questions. I'm not seeing any hands. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you all. Oh, Elizabeth.
Yes, you'll be pleased to know it's not a question. It's just, again, thanks. We've had other opportunities with the RTAG subcommittee and the executive board to thank you. But again, in this space, I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for the multiple roles that you've had, and for with varying lengths of time of how long you've known people who are in RTAG. And we look forward to continuing to hear from you in a non-professional capacity, but with best wishes for your ongoing work in your new job.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, I just wanted to take an opportunity as we close out to thank you all for many years of wonderful friendship and hard work. I know many of you will continue to stay in touch, and I consider dear, dear friends. And it's been my absolute privilege to get to work with you all for so long, and we'll miss all of you in the professional setting, but I'm not going too far. I'm staying in the independent living sphere. I've been working at the National Council on Independent Living for the last 8 months or so. So I hope you all stay in touch with me there. I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat, and also Kat has my contact info. So if you can't reach me, please don't hesitate to ask or reach out. And I know Kat will be more than happy to share it. And I hope you all stay in touch.
Thanks again, Jessica. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
All right, so we can go ahead and I think wrap up tonight's meeting. Thank you all for taking time out of your evening, and the next general membership meeting is on, oh, they took the slide away from me, April 27th. Did I get that right?
You got it, Jessica.
Yes.
Great, April 27th, and at 5:30. So please be on the lookout to the MBTA website for that registration link.
Thanks. Good to see everybody. Yep.
Right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.